Deep beneath Egypt's Valley of the Kings, a sealed doorway waited more than 3,000 years to be opened. Behind it lay a forgotten pharaoh, a spectacular treasure, and the beginnings of one of history's most persistent legends. His name was Tutankhamun, but in life he was neither Egypt's greatest conqueror nor its longest ruling king. He became famous because his early death, hurried burial, and nearly intact tomb preserved a world otherwise lost. Tutankhamun was born near the end of Egypt's powerful 18th dynasty, during a period of religious upheaval. His probable father, Akhenaten, had elevated the sun disk Aten and weakened the traditional cults of Egypt's gods. Temples were disrupted, royal art changed dramatically, and the court moved to a new capital at Akhetaten. When Akhenaten's experiment collapsed, the royal family faced the difficult task of restoring stability and religious tradition. The boy who became Tutankhamun probably reached the throne at about 8 or 9 years old. His original name, Tutankhaten, honored Aten, the deity favored during Akhenaten's reign. Soon, his name became Tutankhamun, signaling the return of Amun and the restoration of older religious practices. Because he was a child, experienced officials almost certainly guided many decisions made in his name. Among the most powerful were I, a senior courtier, and Horemheb, a military commander who later became pharaoh. Royal decrees reopened temples, restored priesthoods, and presented the young king as the healer of a divided kingdom. Yet the surviving evidence tells us far more about his burial than about his personality or daily rule. Images show Tutankhamun with his wife, Ankhesenamun, in unusually intimate scenes of royal life. They had no known surviving children, though 2 mummified fetuses were discovered among the objects inside his tomb. Modern examinations suggest Tutankhamun lived with several physical problems, including disease affecting bones in his left foot. More than 100 walking sticks and staffs were found in the tomb, some showing signs of actual use. These objects support the possibility that the young king sometimes needed assistance walking, although details remain debated. Then, after ruling for roughly a decade, Tutankhamun died while still in his late teens. No surviving Egyptian account explains the moment of his death, and no ancient inscription names a cause. For decades, researchers proposed murder, a chariot accident, inherited illness, infection, or combinations of several medical problems. Early X-rays encouraged speculation that damage to his skull might have resulted from a fatal blow. Later, CT examinations indicated that much of the skull damage was more likely connected to mummification or later handling. Researchers also identified a serious fracture near his left knee that may have occurred shortly before death. Genetic tests reported evidence of Plasmodium falciparum, the parasite responsible for the most dangerous form of malaria. One influential study proposed that malaria, combined with the leg injury and other health problems, may have proved fatal. But ancient DNA is difficult to interpret, and specialists continue debating the reliability and meaning of these findings. The best supported conclusion is cautious. Tutankhamun died young, probably after illness or injury, but the exact cause remains unknown. His sudden death created another problem. A pharaoh's burial normally required extensive preparation, equipment, rituals, and a royal tomb. Tutankhamun's tomb, now called KV62, is unusually small compared with many royal burials in the Valley of the Kings. Its compact layout has encouraged the theory that it was adapted quickly because the king died unexpectedly. Some burial objects may also have been altered or repurposed, though scholars disagree over which pieces and for whom. Inside the burial chamber, enormous gilded wooden shrines surrounded a stone sarcophagus like protective boxes nested together. Within the sarcophagus were 3 human-shaped coffins, the innermost made of solid gold and holding the king's mummy. Over his head and shoulders rested the famous gold funerary mask, inlaid with colored glass and semi-precious stones. The tomb also contained chariots, furniture, clothing, weapons, food, games, jewelry, ritual objects, and items for the afterlife. Thousands of objects crowded its rooms, offering an extraordinary record of royal craftsmanship and belief in the new kingdom. Ancient robbers entered the tomb at least twice, but officials resealed it before most of its contents disappeared. Later, construction debris and workers' huts helped conceal the entrance, while Tutankhamun faded from official royal history. Successors connected with restoring the old order had little reason to preserve the memory of Akhenaten's family. Names and images were removed from monuments, and Tutankhamun's brief reign was omitted from some later king lists. Ironically, being forgotten may have helped protect his burial from the large-scale robbery suffered by other royal tombs. By the early 20th century, excavators had searched much of the valley, and some believed little remained to discover. Howard Carter disagreed. Supported financially by Lord Carnarvon, he continued searching for the missing tomb of Tutankhamun. After years of limited results, Carnarvon considered ending the excavation, but agreed to fund one final season. On November 4, 1922, Carter's team uncovered the top of a staircase beneath ancient workers' huts. The following day, they reached a plastered doorway stamped with seals associated with the royal necropolis. Carter protected the site and sent Carnarvon a telegram announcing a magnificent discovery, then waited for his arrival. On November 26th, Carter made a small opening in the next sealed doorway and looked inside by candlelight. Gold-covered objects emerged from the darkness: beds, chests, dismantled chariots, statues, and unfamiliar shapes packed almost wall to wall. When Carnarvon asked whether he could see anything, Carter later recalled answering, "Yes, wonderful things." The phrase became legendary, but the work ahead was less romantic: recording, conserving, photographing, and moving fragile objects. Egyptian workers and a specialist team spent years clearing the tomb, with methods remarkably careful for the period. Photographer Harry Burton documented objects in place, creating an invaluable visual record before the chambers were dismantled. On February 16, 1923, the sealed burial chamber was officially opened before invited witnesses. Inside stood the great gilded shrines, filling nearly the entire room and concealing the sarcophagus at their center. Months became years as each layer was examined. In 1925, Carter's team finally exposed Tutankhamun's mummy. The discovery transformed an obscure pharaoh into a worldwide celebrity and triggered an international fascination with ancient Egypt. Newspapers reported every development, fashion borrowed Egyptian designs, and audiences embraced stories of hidden treasure and supernatural danger. Then Lord Carnarvon died in Cairo on April 5, 1923, after an infected mosquito bite led to severe illness. His death, only months after the tomb's discovery, gave journalists the perfect foundation for a pharaoh's curse. Reports linked later deaths to the tomb, often ignoring people who lived for decades after entering it. No threatening curse was found inscribed inside Tutankhamun's burial chambers, despite repeated claims in popular retellings. A historical cohort study later found no significant difference in survival between people exposed to the tomb and comparison subjects. Howard Carter himself lived until 1939, more than 16 years after he first entered the tomb. Possible hazards such as mold, bacteria, dust, or gases are sometimes suggested, but none explains a supernatural pattern. The curse survived because it combined coincidence ancient mystery, celebrity deaths, and newspapers competing for dramatic stories. Meanwhile, the real story was more powerful. A young king's burial had preserved evidence of art, religion, technology, and kingship. Each object revealed choices made by craftspeople, priests, officials, and family members preparing a ruler for eternity. The tomb also exposed the limits of archaeology, because spectacular objects cannot answer every question about a vanished life. We still do not know exactly how Tutankhamun died, how suddenly his burial was arranged, or who chose every object. Yet modern imaging, conservation, and scientific testing continue to reveal details without resolving all disputes. Tutankhamun's greatest legacy is not a curse, but an extraordinary accident of survival that opened a window into ancient Egypt.